Welcome to the Deep Dive,
Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Deep Dive, Emerald City Hockey Seattle Kraken podcast. And RJ, we are celebrating episode 200 of the Deep Dive, and I can't think of any better way to celebrate this podcast than by continuing on answering our mailbag questions, because it's just like everything we've tried to do with Emerald City Hockey. It's involving the community, talking with them, answering questions, and just having that engagement from everyone.
Exactly. It's like you lifted it right from my notes. I think it's perfect that our 200th episode is us engaging and being involved with the community, because that's just what we love to do the most. And when I think back on the 199 previous episodes, those are the ones that really stand out to me, the ones where we're interacting with the community. I mean, the one that always still gets me, like the early ones, the mascot contest that we did, that felt like our real
All
first
time,
foray
yeah.
into that. One of the all-time greats, one of the few I think that still holds up from that
The
first
early
year of
days,
podcasting.
yeah.
But I love that it timed out where our 200th episode is this part 2 of our mailbag.
Yeah, no, I think it's worked really well. It's, again, if you go back to like our 100 episode Unspectacular, I guess we did not think ahead hundreds of episodes into planning to have these happen at the end of July. In mid-August, I think the episode 100 was. So don't quite get to like celebrate with the community. It's not easy to like do a get together at a game or anything like that, but this is the next best thing, and I can't wait to answer more questions today on the pod. And of course, we've got to talk about the Kraken news from this past week, which was the Kaapo Kakko extension. But before we get to that, RJ, got to talk about our wonderful sponsor, the law offices of Rico Tessendor. And again, talking about how involved we are with the community, the engagement from the community. You received a very interesting email a couple days ago that kind of relates to Rico.
Yes, I did. And big shout out to Chuck for this email. Just made my day as I was looking at it. Hey, RJ, we were flipping channels tonight and saw this guy in the patrol car. We'll throw up the picture on the video version of this podcast on YouTube. And we both exclaimed in shock and disappointment, Dylan! He looks like he's about to yell, call Rico. So for those of you watching the YouTube version can see that picture. If not, I mean, we can like throw it up on the Discord or something so everyone can see it. But oh man, Dylan, I need to know what you thought when I texted that to you at late at night a couple days ago.
One, I thought it was fantastic. It was just a fun email to get, and to like get that from you was just really funny. I was just arriving at my grandparents' house actually after driving for 2 days, so it was like, oh, okay, this is cool. Second was, that looks nothing like me. I don't think it looks anything like me. Everybody disagrees with me on that though, so I'm obviously biased, I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and disagree. I'll push back on this one. Look, it doesn't look like you right now. That'd be bad if it did.
Yeah.
But I think if you went on a few days long bender, did some not so good things and did the things that might land you in that situation, I could see it.
See, I think I would look like I had a lot more fun than this guy did. If I'm going for it, I'm going for it, and
I'll give
I'm
you
not
that.
looking quite so surprised maybe that I'm ending up in this situation.
Yeah, you wouldn't be deer in the headlights, I don't think, to this extent.
But yeah, no, it was
You
fantastic.
know who to call though.
Exactly, and that's the thing. That was the third thing I thought of, which was just, wow, I do like, and this is not the first time that we've interacted with people and they make the joke of call Rico, and it's really cool that Rico hasn't even been with us for a full year, and yet it has just become this thing within the community, for everybody to talk about Rico and make the jokes with us and all of that stuff. But it shows that Rico, advertising dollars well spent.
Exactly. People do think call Rico.
Yep, and while we hope none of you ever need his services, the odds say that at some point someone out there will be involved in an accident, whether on the road, at work, or anywhere in between. And when you are, we hope you call Rico at 425-778-9800 or visit his website, ricotessendor.com, to schedule a free consultation. He's won millions of dollars for his clients and helped thousands of people in the greater Seattle area. And as a fellow member of the ECH community, we know he'll help you too. All right, RJ, Kaapo Kakko, they did it. Right after they announced when his arbitration date, hearing was going to be, we magically got a contract. Shocking how that always happens.
Yeah, funny how these things work. I don't know who could have possibly predicted that. It was everybody online. And so, yeah, we knew this deal was going to come together. That part was predictable. But you know what was also predictable? What the terms of the contract ended up being, because I think that's excuse me, the biggest part of this deal, right? Is just it came in at exactly the projection pretty much. I mean, 3 years, 4 point oh, I can't believe
Two
I don't have
five,
that. 4
for
yeah,
4.525.
525. That's it. I knew it was that one extra digit that was
Yep.
gonna throw me off. 4.525, and I think it was projected at like 3 times 4.6, almost exactly there. And so I feel like in a way there's not a ton to say about it because it's just a totally fair deal.
Right, and it's also like a classic bridge deal for a player that does kind of fit the classic bridge deal mold, right? Because you have Kaapo Kakko, who spent all those years in New York, wasn't really able to climb the depth chart there, get the opportunities to show what kind of player he could be beyond a like third line winger who's really good defensively and can kind of feature and focus on that. Comes over to Seattle, gets the opportunity to play, top 6 minutes, first line with Matty Beniers, obviously looks fantastic, but it's a limited sample size. So when you come to restricted free agency, what do you do with that contract and what do you do with a player like that? And I think this is the perfect one. Obviously, all players want to have the long-term security and everything like that, but given just what he has actually done in the NHL, because he spent so many years buried in New York, because it was only half a season here in Seattle, there was no way that an organization was going to give him the long-term big dollar value contract that he would probably want. And so you work with the team and you come up with this bridge deal. It's basically a prove it deal, right? He's getting some decent money now. But really, what this does is it allows him to, now that he's in a better spot in Seattle, he's going to be playing top 6 minutes. He's going to have the opportunity to continue to build chemistry with Matty Beniers, maybe a Shane Wright, guys that are going to be integral to this team's future. Build that chemistry, show what he can actually do when given the 17 plus minutes a night that he can get here that he wasn't getting in New York, and then go out there and prove before he hits unrestricted free agency, or when the contract ends, he'll be an unrestricted free agent, that then he deserves that big contract that goes along with him being a former second overall pick and all of those good things. And then on the Kraken side of things, you're getting a player who you're going to have out there in your top six and you're paying him like a good third liner, right? Like basically kind of what those contracts are. I mean, this is going to be a great contract over the next 3 years, given what you're going to get out of Kaapo Kakko. And I mean, it certainly sets you up for like next off season where you got close to $39 million in cap space now, and you don't have to worry about that top six winger spot in the same way that you did before.
Yeah, I think it works out pretty well for both sides. I almost look at it the other way, where I could see maybe it being more likely the Kraken would want to buy up some more UFA years and go a little bit longer of a term. And I would have loved to see them do this just because they have the extra cap space to work with right now, and they're going to continue to have it, especially next season. But I totally see why Capo Caco wouldn't want to do that on his end, given you've only shown, as far as probably what you think, a little bit of your potential, right? You need more time to show what you can do. And by signing this deal, you hit unrestricted free agency now at age 27. That's really young for
It's
a player to hit UFA. And if he plays up to the level that he thinks he can, that we've seen that he can in stretches, right? He's going to get a massive payday.
Oh, for sure.
Huge, huge payday. So I understand him not wanting to go any longer than the 3 years that he did.
Yeah, exactly. But great deal for the Kraken. I think it's going to be a good deal for Kaapo Kakko in the long run because he's going to be set up for that big payday by the end of it, assuming he lives up to the deal. No reason to think he won't. It's just, yeah, it's just a nice bit of business, all things considered. And then now everybody can turn their attention over to Riker Evans because that's really going to be the last bit of off-season business for Jason Bottrell here.
Yeah, and that one I wouldn't hold my breath on just
Mm.
because there really is no time pressure to get it done. Unlike with the Capo Caco deal where you had arbitration looming, you don't really have that for Riker Evans. I mean, no offer sheet is coming. So it could go all the way up until right before training camp. And that wouldn't be a big deal or anything negative. That sort of thing does happen fairly regularly. I mean, the Kraken have what, $6.6 million dollars in cap space to work with on that deal. So they'll have no problem getting it done from a cap perspective. But that one could last a little while. Of course, now that I say this, expect it to be done, maybe a couple hours after we record.
I was gonna
But
say deep dive curse is undefeated, so we'll see.
yes, definitely. So I may have brought that on, and I'd be happy if that's the case. But yeah, Riker Evans kind of the last bit of offseason business for them to
Yep.
do.
But for everybody who was worried about it, and again, we were hoping nobody was getting too worried about it. Kaapo Kakko deal is done. Gonna be here 3 more years. Gonna be playing with Matty Beniers. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Definitely. So, time to dive into this mailbag.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we will kind of pick up where we left off. And by the way, thank you everybody for your patience. Those whose questions we did not get to last week, there were just simply too many for us to get there all in one episode. Which again, we really appreciate that. So we'll start this one off with a question from Justin. I'm a former Rangers fan, but I switched to following the Kraken this past season, and I was curious your thoughts on what do you think our goalie's biggest weaknesses are. I feel from the games I've watched last year, they're giving up too big of rebounds, creating scoring opportunities for the other team. I understand defense should help control and clear, but if the rebound isn't coming as far out, that would also limit scoring chances. So, Justin, as a former Rangers fan, I mean, you've definitely been spoiled, I think, somewhat in terms
I
of
was gonna
goaltending
say, yeah.
with
Lundqvist
Igor
into
Shesterkin.
Shesterkin.
Yeah, and even Jonathan Quick as a backup. I mean,
Mhm.
he's found his game again in New York as a veteran there. So, asking what the biggest weaknesses for the goaltenders are, I think we'll go goalie by goalie, just
Yeah.
because. I mean, it's very different. I think from Philip Grubauer to Joey Decord. With Grubauer, there are a number of things that you can pick out. I mean, when he's not on his game, I mean, just take your pick of anything, whether it's the angles that are a little bit off, trouble tracking the puck, just not being aggressive enough in the crease. It kind of all goes wrong, and even leaky when a puck hits him in the middle. But yeah, I mean, when he's not on his game, it's kind of everything going wrong.
Exactly. I mean, there's just so many times on post games or watching the games where we've talked about this, right? Where he's been maybe a little bit too passive, very deep in his crease, sometimes playing really just along the goal line, and that's not something you want to do. The angles are a big deal, especially we've talked about this with Philip Grubauer all 4 seasons the Kraken have played, right? He's very much more of a calculated goaltender. He wants to play those angles. He wants to basically stop the puck just based off of his positioning. And he's at times really struggled with that positioning. He's struggled to kind of dial things in, get calibrated for where shooters are going to be taking shots from out there on the ice. He's had a hard time, I think, also reading behind the defense at times, especially as the defense these last couple of years has really shifted around, given that we're now on our third coaching staff in 3 years. I think that that has hurt a goalie that with the play style of a Philip Grubauer. But yeah, it's just been a rough go of things for Philip Grubauer. And then yeah, the puck tracking has definitely seems like he's surprised by shots sometimes, and that's not something you want a goalie to look like.
Yeah, and when he is more on his game, I think the biggest weakness is just that he's not all that big. He's not one of the
Yeah,
larger goalies in the NHL. We've
especially
seen that a few times.
for somebody who relies on positioning and basically just being in the spot for the puck to hit you. If you don't have that 6'4" frame or something, it can be
Yeah, and I remember
tough.
last season there were a few goals where we were like, well, he reacted the way he should. He did the motion he should. He reached for the puck, and it just kind of went between his glover blocker and the post because there's just that room there because he's not
Mhm.
on the larger side. As for Joey Decord, I mean, there aren't a whole lot of weaknesses to talk about. I guess the one that probably most people will bring up is the aggressiveness
Mhm.
because sometimes he can get a little too aggressive and he can get burned on that. But I really don't mind that with a goalie as long as the defense is just okay in front of him and knows how to react to it. That alone shouldn't be a problem.
Right. And I think kind of for the most part, obviously a lot of the issues last year were defensive for this team. And so I think that there was a handful of times where, it might look like he was maybe a little too aggressive and he went off and did something playing high up in the crease or even a little outside of the crease. And you maybe are shaking your head like, what's Joey thinking there? But really it was on the D, not kind of backing him up and covering his weak side there. I think that really the aggressiveness where it comes in and it turns into a weakness is when he goes on his adventures, when he skates away from the crease into out to the half boards, when he's behind the net and he goes to make a play and sometimes he kind of double clutches before he makes a pass and now all of a sudden somebody's on top of him, he's behind the net and you're like, what are we doing here? Those tend to be the few times that I think he gets himself into trouble. Otherwise, nothing else he does kind of puts himself in that spot. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to challenge shooters. Sometimes that does mean if there is a rebound, he's going to be, like I said, out of the crease, and that puck's going to be floating around somewhere. In a perfect world, your defense covers for you in those moments and they understand that you play that way as a goalie. That is something that I'm hoping to see a little bit more under Lane Lambert is just that tighter defensive structure, having those defensemen closer to home than what we saw last year under Dan Bosma, where they were given a lot of, they weren't even given the freedom to roam. They were really kind of pushed to go and roam and go play in the corners, things like that. And I think having both defensemen a little bit closer to Joey Daccord is going to help take away some of those moments of panic where he is aggressive, he challenges a shooter, he makes the save, and then there's just a rebound with no goalie in the crease.
Yeah, and I think when you mentioned rebound control there, Justin, I think Joey Daccord does have a few more issues with that than Philip Grubauer, just based on their style of play and the way that they play. But again, that's the kind of thing you want the defense to cover for. And if Joey's stopping the puck the first time, enough times like he does, that's on the defense to clear those pucks away and to make sure those second opportunities don't come. So I think that's really the only weakness there is to speak of with Joey Daccord, at least the way he's played the last 2 years. He's really
Yeah.
tightened up a lot of aspects of his game. But it's going to be on the defense next season to really help that get better and help the goalies succeed. So, next question, Dylan, from Hammer, and I'll let you take the lead on this one. Explain Stevenson to me. His play is fine, but his analytics, especially those playing on his line suffer, are not good. Yet he led in assists, has the softest mitts, and a great face-off percentage. Dylan, I know you've explained this in the past, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, and I don't know that I've ever like explained it this way either. Like I'm gonna keep it really simple and just kind of break it down like almost as close to an equation as I think it can be, right? Chandler Stevenson is a great passer. He does have some good hands, right? We love the way he takes shots at weird moments and it catches goalies by surprise. He is by far and away the Kraken's best person on the faceoff dot. There's no question there. But when you do look at his analytics, it says, I mean, he's like a bottom five player in the National Hockey League when it comes to forwards who get the ice time that he gets. And this is something that we've talked about. And basically, it all comes down to defense. And he's, especially at least last year, an extremely poor defensive forward. And so the equation that I'll kind of use to explain all this is yes, he can score goals. Yes, he can get assists. But if the other team is scoring more than what he can generate when he's out there, his analytics are going to look bad, right? And that goes for either scoring goals or generating expected goals, right? And that's really what a lot of the analytics are going to be driven off of is not necessarily just actual goals scored, but chances generated. And so it's one of those things where if you have a player who is capable of getting you, let's say, generating a goal per game, an expected goal per game, but when he's out there on the ice, the other team is generating two or three expected goals per game. It doesn't matter that he's getting you that goal per game or he's generating those chances at that level for you because the other team is just getting more of them. And that's basically what happens with Chandler Stevenson is that the other team, as great as Chandler Stevenson is out there offensively, the other teams are able to get more chances, score more goals when he is out there on the ice than what he is able to generate for the Seattle Kraken. And that's why he becomes a net negative player out there for the Kraken and his analytics are as poor as are and why we, bring him up in the way that we bring him up.
Right. And that's really what it comes down to is that there's goals you create, but there's also goals against when you're on the ice. And so when you look at it statistically, and I know some people may have issues with expected goals because those are different than actual goals and it's just shot quality. But you look at the shot quality while he's on the ice, Kraken with 39% of expected goals per natural stat trick. That's lowest on the team for anybody when they're on the ice. And then in actual goals as well, he's not lowest, but of the regulars, he's right behind of the guys still left, basically, Ty Cartier there, one of the lowest among the Kraken forwards, only 45% of actual goals at 5-on-5 when he's on the ice go in the Kraken's favor. And so when you're getting scored on more than you are scoring goals yourself, that's why, we say it's a net negative.
Right. And that's a problem because at the end of the day, if your team scores less than the other team is scoring, you lose games. And so if you have players where that's happening when they're out there, then they're helping you lose games. And that's the bottom line with Chandler Stevenson, at least last year. Obviously, there's hope that he won't be as poor defensively next year. Lane Lambert's system is going to ask the center position to do things a lot differently than what Dan Bylsma was asking his centers to do. So there is a chance that Chandler Stevenson will be able to really pick up his defensive numbers, try to get it closer to a 50-50 split, and then we won't kind of talk about him the way we had to talk about him through last season.
Yeah, and maybe potentially some new line mates will help. And we could go into
Yeah.
this next question from Chuck. Chandler Stevenson struggled across the board in pairing stats last season. With a new coach and system, do you give him another chance with McCann, Schwartz, or Tolvanen, or try him with new line mates? And if new line mates, who might be a good fit?
Right. I mean, we talked about this last week when we were kind of talking about what we thought the roster might look like. And I think with Chandler Stevenson, I would definitely have him with Jared McCann just because I think Jared McCann, obviously, he's the best sniper on the team, put him with the best passer on the team. For offensive reasons, that makes sense to me, but also because Jared McCann can be good defensively and can help kind of cover for what centers lack defensively, right? He's a pretty good defensive center when he is playing the center position himself. So I think having Jared McCann out there who can kind of help him works. I would, yeah, I would consider having Tolvanen out there and just give him two straight shooters on his wings. Tell him, yes, pass first, play a little back in the offensive zone. Don't worry about trying to go for rebounds. It's not really what Chandler Stevenson does anyway. And have him play a little bit further back in the offensive zone. Just look to make plays from the perimeter to his shooters, and then that also will give him a leg up as far as being able to get back defensively, and then again, hopefully cut down on some of the defensive issues he had last year.
I think another player that might fit in with that strategy, at least in the offensive zone, is Yanni Newman. I
Yep.
think you'd want to give him another winger like a Jared McCann who can kind of help out defensively and do that stuff in the D zone. But I do like the idea of Yanni Newman playing with somebody who's a really good playmaker, can get him the puck and kind of use that shot.
Yes, if Yanni Newman's going to be playing like, because realistically, Chandler Stevenson is going to be getting top 6 minutes. I'm just not sure about Yanni Newman right away getting top 6 minutes, but maybe
Well, I
later
think
in the
it's going to be the
season.
Catton thing first, and then
Yeah,
maybe Newman later if Cat goes back down. But again, like I think we need to start setting the expectations right now for what we want. Like if this is a transition year, which by all indications it
it should
is,
be.
why not put Yanni Newman in a position like that to succeed? Maybe it's a little bit much for him in terms of ice time. Maybe you shift another winger in there occasionally, on every third, fourth shift, whatever. But like these are the kind of things that you should be doing in a transition year because it's all about getting those guys reps.
No coach will do it.
I know, I know,
I'm
I
with you.
know.
I'm with you 1,000%. Like I am. I'm just trying to stay realistic. And we might see something like that later in the year, particularly if the Kraken are out of it. They make some trades at the deadline. It's going to open up more spots higher up in the lineup for guys to move up there. Do you neither one of us mentioned Mason Marchment, but do you think that having a player like that might help out Chandler Stevenson a little bit just because Mason Marchment is going to be big and physical. He's going to be somebody who really is going to slow down other teams, just especially if he's the one in on the forecheck, the other team's trying to get up the ice. He's going to be disruptive to that effort. Do you think that Mason Marchment being out there might actually help Chandler Stevenson defensively a little bit? Not because of any play in the defensive zone, because I don't think of Mason Marchment as a great guy in his own zone. He's fine. But just because other teams are not going to be able to really attack with speed when Mason Marchment's out there.
I think that could help. And if you look at my prediction for the opening night lineups from last week, I had Mason Marchment on
Mhm.
Chandler Stevenson's line. I think that's something that could work also in the offensive zone because we've talked about pairing Chandler Stevenson with guys that are kind of pure shooters and can get the puck to the net and utilize Stevenson's playmaking ability. As we saw last season, you don't often score on your first shot. And you kind of need somebody with net front
Mhm.
presence to go get those rebounds and someone also to kind of create some space on that line and in the corners and maybe win some battles to free up some room for Stevenson and maybe like a Jared McCann or even I had Berkeley Catton on the other part of that line for the opening night lineup. And I think Marchment could do a lot to create space, I guess, for those things to happen and also go to the net because the Kraken just need more guys to do that. And I could
Yes.
see without him, it just being a line where you get a lot of first opportunities, but not many second and third chances.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. Yeah, we'll see what Lane Lambert does, and we'll see kind of how everybody looks through training camp and the preseason, like where the early chemistry is. Because I really do think on a team like this, when you have essentially a top nine that's going to all be roughly equivalent to each other, probably best just to go off of chemistry than really trying to galaxy brain think some of these scenarios where it's like, okay, do we where who needs the guy who's going to the net front, all that kind of stuff. See which guy's going to actually pass to the player who's sitting back door. You know what I mean? I think
Mhm.
we're going to have to just kind of wait and see how some of this plays out.
Yep, agreed. But speaking of lines, pairs, chemistry, we do have another one from Chuck. Montour's pairing numbers on Money Puck last year were mostly below 50% in both goals and expected goals. Yet, given how strong Montour looks via the eye test, what explains this? Is it lack of forward support, tough matchups, or just no ideal partner? Worth noting, the exception is Montour's numbers with Josh Mahura. Though they had limited minutes together last year, they spent time together. Montour and Mahura the last 3 years. Goals 11.4, 5 against. Expected goals 9.14, 7.5 against. Is it worth trying them together this year, assuming they move out Alexiak? So, looking at Brandon Montour's D partners, and I think as far as the numbers being mostly below 50% in both goals, expected goals, all that, I think part of that is just he played a lot of time on a bad team,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing just adds up for any defenseman, especially in situations that were, I think, more high leverage, like when you're trailing and you need to go get a goal.
Hmm.
And often that can end up in the back of your net the other way. We saw that plenty on Vince Dunn's numbers. So I think that explains the overall trend and phenomenon. But as far as the D pairs, what are you thinking?
Well, I was gonna say, and it's also he was trying to play to the system that Dan wanted, right? That the last coaching staff wanted, which was a very aggressive move the puck up the ice, skate the puck up the ice. He was really, especially when Vince Dunn was out, he was the guy really having to make that happen, right? When he was out there for shifts, he was like having to drag the puck up the ice offensively and be the guy leading rush chances for the Kraken, and the rest of the team just really wasn't built for that. And so they struggled with it both offensively as far as being able to support him in that endeavor. And therefore they weren't able to generate a lot of chances, even when he was making great moves and able to, make two guys miss and get past them and carry the puck into the zone with a controlled entry. He just very rarely had any support and was able to then end up with a scoring chance that was, too positive for the Seattle Kraken because just nobody was with him. And then it also put him in spots where because those chances kind of fizzled out pretty quick, he was having to go all the way back, right? He's the guy who entered the offensive zone. He's kind of deep in the offensive zone. Now he's having to go all the way back. And so there was a lot of times where, yeah, just defensively things were a little bit of a mess when he was out there just because not because he doesn't know what he's doing, but just because he was having to really do everything when he was out there on the ice, particularly in the first half of the season when Vince Dunn was out. And so I think all of that really dragged on his numbers. I think being in a system that's not going to ask him to be Superman out there is going to be a big thing for these rebounding, and it's going to allow him to just kind of focus on generating positive chances in the offensive zone instead of having to just worry about doing everything. So as far as matches for that, yeah, certainly if you move out Alexiak, I think it's worth trying Montour and Mahura together just because they do have chemistry going back years, right? Being in the Anaheim system together and then with the Ducks and then obviously with the Florida Panthers before coming to Seattle. I think that when it comes to defensive pairings, do not bet against that chemistry and knowing each other's tendencies, where they want to be, and just having that psychic link. It really does mean something. And I do wonder, normally I would say like, okay, defenseman comes in free agency first year, he doesn't have that rapport with anybody, but over 1 year you're able to build that, and then you're able to have that transition in a year or two, and the numbers look a lot better. The problem is it was a revolving door on who was playing with Montour last year. I don't know that he was really able to build that much chemistry with say a Riker Evans just because it was just all over the place as far as who he was paired with.
Yeah, and Riker Evans wasn't playing his best
Good,
hockey
yeah.
when those two were paired. And maybe that has something to do with each other, right? But I still think it was just maybe an Evans thing, not being all that confident in the time they were playing together. I'd like to give that another shot, maybe hoping that could work. But again, I have a little bit of a concern about playing Mahura with Montour just because that's a lot of ice time to give Josh Mahura.
It is.
And so
No,
it
yeah,
just
I don't think it makes sense. It's just he's the only one with chemistry with him because the obvious choice is Ryan Lindgren, but he's just arriving to the team.
Right. And also you look at of course you give that a try. Like I think they're going to try that first because if that can work, that's the natural best solution. But I do have concerns about how he was kind of tanked Adam Fox's numbers
Hmm.
last year. And would you have a similar effect on Brandon Montour? Maybe he would. So you give it a try, you see if it works. Maybe Evans, you give a try, and I mean Alexiak still there, not a great pairing, but he
I
still
mean,
is
he should
there.
rebound with the change in systems.
That's true. So maybe that could help that pair just be unlocked if the change in systems helps and it just clicks there. So, we'll kind of have to see. That is one of the things the Kraken do have to solve is like who is their D partner. But they've got a lot of good defensemen that you could put there with them. I mean, you really have and with your abundance of left D, you've got like three solid options potentially for D partners there. So we'll see how that turns out. As for the numbers with Montour and Mahura the last 3 years, I don't know what their numbers were exactly just with the Kraken. But also, I think one of the things that could explain that is being with a much better team in Florida. 2 of those three
Yes,
years, those numbers are going to look better.
definitely, definitely.
All right. So moving on. Next email from Sam. Hello, boys. It's Sam. Last year, I made 5 way too early predictions prior to the season. It's 2 for 5 on the results. So here's 8 more way too early predictions for this year. Let's run through them real quick.
Hmm.
Number 1, Shane will beat Maddie again in points, but Maddie will cross the 50-point threshold. I could see that.
Yeah, something the Kraken need.
Yeah. 2, if the Kraken are out of it after the deadline again, 2 of Furcus, Chalet, or Nelson will play a game at the NHL level. It certainly fit with kind of how they handled the prospects last year.
Yeah, yeah. No, those are interesting names too. So it'll be interesting to see. Like spending more time on it, I could really dig into who that might end up being.
Yeah. Number 3, Montour gets an A on his sweater this season and leads the Kraken defenseman in points. I mean, both of those certainly on the table
Hmm.
there. 4, the Kraken Olympic representatives are Tolvi, Kakko, Oscar Fisker Molgard, and Gru. So I think 3 of those are pretty much locks, and then we'll
Locks,
see
yeah.
if yeah. And 5 of those who are on expiring contracts, Jaden Schwartz will get re-signed.
That I mean that's a
That's
swing of a
bold. That
prediction.
is a
That is a
bold
bold
one.
one for
Yeah.
sure. I would
But if
I
it's
would
right, we got to
maybe
give you the credit.
I was gonna say I might have him at like the lowest odds to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love a bold prediction in there though.
Yes.
6, Catton doesn't stick with the team this year, but will captain Team Canada back to World Junior Gold. So if he doesn't stick, he's got to be Team Canada's captain. And as for whether they win gold,
I was
can
gonna
they
say
fix some of their issues? That's the boldest part of it.
I was gonna say that might be the boldest prediction is just Canada winning gold at World Juniors. I do think Catton being one of the focal points and being captain would be a big benefit to them. And it does seem like they have learned from their past mistakes these last couple years, but I think it might take more than the 6 months that the new leadership Team Canada has. It might take a little bit more than that to get them back to gold status.
Yeah, I'd say probably so. 7, Tolvi will have a career year this season. So predicting another career year on top of the past one he just had. And number 8, probably the boldest prediction. I mean, this one, if you call a trade exactly, I'd say that's got to be the boldest
Yeah,
prediction,
for
especially
sure.
given what this is. The Kraken will trade Jared McCann to the Rangers in exchange for Gabe Perreault, a 2026 second, and a 2027 conditional late round pick. Oh boy, I think the fans might riot on that one.
Yeah, it's not quite the return that you would hope to get for Jared McCann. If you're pulling the trigger and you're trading Jared McCann with the term of, next year with that insanely good value of the $5 million cap hit, I mean, you are getting a top prospect in Gabe Perreault from the Rangers, and we talked about like that's what the Kraken should be targeting is guys kind of on the cusp of becoming NHLers who have a lot of potential. I mean, Gabe Perreault has a huge amount of offensive potential, but Perot a second and a late round pick. I don't know.
Yeah, the value doesn't exactly add up there. I mean, hey, maybe Perot just is on fire to start the season or something. Rangers in playoff position, and
Yeah, I mean,
Perot looks
well,
a
I was
lot
gonna
better than he
say
does
if
now.
if Perot, is able to like crack the Rangers lineup and looks good in limited minutes, and they just don't have the ability to give him the additional ice time, a la Kaapo Kakko, it might be worth going for. Like if his underlying numbers are good,
Yeah,
he's a special offensive player.
They'd have to be really good. But yeah, let's see how many of these pan out, Sam. So thank you, Sam, for all the
Yeah.
predictions. Fun to go through, and of course, we'll revisit them in a year's time.
Yeah, and
Uh,
well, and really in a month when we do our way too early predictions and kind of go through everything. Also, I would just say for number two, as far as like Kraken prospects who could come up and play an NHL game post trade deadline, do not count out Oscar Fisker Molgard. I know he's a center,
mhm.
and so you might not have a spot for him, but I think he might be the guy that's most kind of pro ready of the names mentioned there. And then if I include him,
All right, Dylan calling it right now. So we'll revisit that one after the trade deadline. This one from Shannon. Which former Kraken player is most likely to come back and haunt us next season? This is a fun question. Dylan, any thoughts on who you think it'll be? I
I
have
don't.
just one name listed here.
Oh yeah, is it Mark Giordano just becoming some sort of like league rep, and then he's
That'd
able
be a
to do
bold prediction.
something. Um, I don't know. I don't really think of anybody as being in a spot where they could really do too much damage, unless I'm forgetting like
I
somebody
mean, given how
insanely
the regular
obvious.
season works, like, yeah, there's not anyone who like will play the Kraken more than 4 times,
I
so it's
mean,
limited, of course.
Kraken
But
sneak into a playoff spot. They're paired against the Kings, and Brian Dumoulin goes off. That's not happening. It's not
yeah, no, that's
happening.
which
There's
part of that is less
I was
likely?
gonna say that's a lot of like 0.5 percentage chances things going all together.
Yeah,
No, who
I
is
mean,
it
I
for
can give
you?
my answer. Yeah, for
Yeah.
me, it's Andre Burakovsky.
Oh, you think?
I
Yeah.
think I could see Berkey putting up some numbers against the Kraken next year because I look if they're not more focused defensively, or at least not early on, we've seen Chicago play too well against the Kraken in
They
the
really
past
struggle there, yeah.
and score a fair amount of goals. And so I think Berkey, I mean, look, he could very well be on the first line
Hmm.
with Connor Bedard. Like he could be getting that opportunity. And, on their first unit power play, if the Kraken take some penalties, they play Chicago at home November 3rd. That'll be Berkey's return to Seattle. Like that's an early chance for him to put up some points. And I don't know. Of all the guys that are former Kraken, I could see him probably doing it the most.
Yeah, he's also probably the most motivated too.
Yeah, he'd love to get on the score sheet there.
Yeah, I don't, because I think that's really part of it is as far as like somebody that you were gonna see for a little while and they're gonna always perform against us. I think like when you start looking at other players, Brandon Tanev, I don't know that he's going to be extra motivated, say against the Kraken. Berkey's going to be extra motivated against the Kraken just because of everything. The fact that he was fourth liner for a lot of his time here, and he heard what the fans were saying and everything. Like I think he'll be the most motivated for by far.
Yep. So anybody else?
Not really. I mean, part of it is I just when I think of like players haunting, I think of it being like this longer term stretch where it's just like they go and they're just super successful somewhere else, and you're just always like, why wasn't that with us, or why couldn't that have been us? And so far the Kraken just don't have anybody like that, right? I mean, Jared McCann, if he's traded, could become that guy because he could go and help a team have a lot of playoff success. Although I think everybody would largely just be happy for him.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess Ryan Donato and Morgan Geeky are probably the closest thing the Kraken
Hmm.
have to that. So
Yeah.
yeah, and if it didn't say former Kraken player, I might say Dave Haxtell or a Paul McFarland.
Yeah, with Colorado.
Yeah, or McFarland with Edmonton.
Yeah.
Although the Oilers probably would have beaten the Kraken
I
anyway. I
was
don't
gonna
know that
say I
McFarland would
don't
make a big
I
difference.
don't know that the Kraken were gonna beat either of those two teams actually. So yeah, I just don't know that we're in a spot right now for guys to haunt this group.
Yep. Now, next question. I really don't have any
Oh, this one's
confidence in
so easy.
the.
This one's so easy for me.
Okay. All right. From Hockey Mom, best dressed Kraken player. Go.
Brandon Montour. Not even
That's
a
a good
question.
answer.
Not even a question. He doesn't have to do anything totally out there the way like some other players are always like kind of going for it a little bit more with their suits. I always think of Yanni Gord with the suits with and the suit game, but Brandon Montour just effortless, always has his hair on point. Usually with that kind of wetted look, but the way that he'll rock the different colored suits without it having to be like some showpiece type thing, and the different fabric suits, right? Because he's still got the linen suits from his time in Florida where you want something a little lighter, something that's going to breathe, something that's going to be good for all that humidity. And he'll rock those at both the beginning and the end of the season. And then as we get into the winter months, he'll start going with the heavier coats. Like, I just think the variety that Brandon Montour has to his wardrobe makes it an easy call to go with him, because other guys, like, I like the way Jordan Eberle styles himself. He'll go with the old school cap, and he'll kind of go for like an older school look, but he just kind of recycles that all throughout the season. Brandon Montour actually changes with the seasons, and that I appreciate a lot.
Okay, that's a really good answer. I mean, personally, I like the suits. I put more weight on the exit interview outfits just because it
Okay.
gives a little bit more. I maybe I shouldn't, but it feels like it gives players a little bit more of a chance to kind of show their personality or
Well,
what they'd wear when they don't have to follow a dress code.
and we might see that this year with no, or I guess next year would be the year with no dress
Yeah.
code. Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's a little more interesting to me. And with that, I mean, because I've gone through and I think a couple of years ago did like a review of all the outfits and everything with Kate Shefty for Patreon. That was really fun. I'm trying to think. I mean, Vince Dunn, always stylish. I like Philip Grubauer. He's not it's not the most fashionable outfit, but he
Best
always wears some
hats.
kind of best hats, and it's always something local too. I think this year was a
Mhm.
Gasworks Brewing hat, so really appreciate that for the guy who always sticks around in the community all off season. Like that's
Yep.
really cool to see. Um, I mean, Joey Decord, I thought looked among the best this year. I mean, he looked like he was about to go watch an F1 race or something. So there was that. I think Matty Beniers was just in like his hoodie, team issue hoodie and
Yeah.
sandals. So, maybe he doesn't get high marks there. But yeah, it's some interesting choices. And I can't wait in a couple of years to see kind of what players do when there isn't a strict dress code.
Yep, definitely. But yeah, for me, it's Brandon Montour. I will shout out Chandler Stevenson for rocking the turtlenecks under the suit and kind of going for a James Bond villain look. It works.
Yeah, it definitely
Especially
does,
with
especially with the
the
mustache.
slick back hair and the mustache. It works.
Mhm.
It's a thing. But again, kind of like Everly, it's recycled a little bit too much for me.
Yeah, it does get a little repetitive.
Yeah.
So next question from Chuck. Which teams in the Pacific Division do you see taking a step forward next season, and which ones are likely to regress? Are the Kraken the guy at the poker table who doesn't realize he's the mark?
I
So interesting
I think
last
they
bit of
know
that
they're the
question.
mark at this
Well,
point.
that's what I had on my notes. Like, look, they know they're the mark. They know they're not very good. This is something like they won't admit it because they can't, but like I think they all know where they're at.
Yeah. As for teams that are going to take a step forward, we've been talking all off season about Anaheim. You look at how they finished the season; they are primed to take a step forward. You look at the additions they made this off season, both on the player side of things and with Joel Quinville coming back behind the bench. Again, I don't think that he's going to lead them to any sort of playoff success. I do think largely the game has passed Joel Quinville by, but you know what? He's going to be a better coach than Greg Cronin was. Like, he is going to make them a better team during the regular season than what they had behind the bench last year. And so I think Anaheim's definitely getting better. San Jose's getting better just because their young players are going to be taking steps forward. The fact that Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith will be entering their second full NHL seasons is going to be big for them. They go out, they sign Jeff Skinner. I think he's going to help just add a little bit extra offensive push. Dmitry Orlov on the blue line is going to help them out a little bit there. We'll see what kind of goaltending they get. I think that might be like their big Achilles heel. They're still not going to be like, they're not going to be a playoff team or anything, but the Sharks will be better. I really think, like, of the teams, only one team took a noticeable step back for me, and that's the Kings. But they still have a playoff roster. Like, they're still going to be a team that's going to be really competitive. I just don't think they're as good as they were.
Yeah, they're the one team of the playoff teams that could take a little step back, but I still think they're pretty solidly in the playoff conversation. I think the biggest team that's likely to regress, because I agree with you, Dylan.
It's
Anaheim's going to be better, San Jose is going to be better, but
right.
it's Calgary.
It's Calgary.
Yeah, because they had incredible goaltending last
They
season.
were
We know that
lucky.
doesn't.
Yeah.
They were very lucky, and we know that doesn't tend to last from year to year. And on paper, they're just not very good. They're certainly not a 96-point team. I don't think Dustin Wolf is going to do what he did last season again. He may still be good, but he's not going to be out of his mind good. So I expect Calgary to drop, and that's kind of the one team I see the Kraken really having the chance to jump.
To leapfrog,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, maybe Anaheim if things really go south, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll obviously talk about it when we do our division preview next month during way too early, but there's not a lot of teams I think the Kraken are going to be better than in division. At least not without knowing, future injuries and situations developing. I do think there's a chance Vancouver completely falls apart this year. Like I know it
Yes.
seemed like they were falling apart last year. I really think Rick Tocchet was holding that team together, and I think without him this year, you run into struggles. Quinn Hughes gets hurt and has to miss 10 games. Things are going to get ugly in Vancouver very fast.
Yes, I think they certainly have that potential. Again, we'll talk about it on the division preview, but like, oh boy, am I conflict on that because it felt like everything that went wrong for them last year, or that could have gone wrong, did go wrong.
Mhm.
And yet, with the changes they've
It seems
made,
so easy to repeat itself.
exactly. So we'll see how that ends up. Vancouver is the total wild card. I don't mean that by wild card playoff spot, just wild card team in that division. So it'll be an interesting Pacific next year for sure. Next question from Lindsay, and I know Dylan, you'll enjoy this one.
Mhm.
Aside from Gavin McKenna, are there any other prospects at the top of the 2026 draft class that excite you if we end up picking in the top 10 again?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some good names up there. There's obviously Gavin McKenna, who's going to be, you know, as close to generational as you can probably be without me giving you the title of generational. But he's gonna be an elite player next year. I'm trying to find where my list for everybody went here. There we go. There's Ryan Rubrick, left winger, again another winger just like McKenna. He played with Niagara last year, had 87 points in 64 games, has good size, 6'2", 210. I think the size and the skill factor with him, kind of looking at like a maybe another Porter Martone type as far as style. He's a little bit smaller than Martone, but he has that same style of game to him, and I think he's going to put up ridiculous numbers this year. Already had 41 goals last year. He's going to have even more. Keaton Verhoff, defenseman. I mean, a lot of people are having him as second in this draft class. Somebody who's just looks absolutely fantastic and is going to be making that jump to the NCAA next year. He's going to be playing at the University of North Dakota. But somebody who can put up points. Played with Victoria last year in the WHL. So if T-Birds fan, Everett fan, you probably saw him and you would have noticed him with what he was able to do last year. Put up 45 points as a rookie in the league. He has the size, 6'3", 207. He's got the playmaking ability, and he's got the ability just to eat minutes like crazy. And so I think going the NCAA route is going to be really good for him and interesting for him. We'll kind of see what that looks like. It's a lot of wingers up here at the top. The other winger from North America that I mentioned would be Ethan Belchetz, I think is how it's kind of pronounced there. But 6'5", 227, and again, puts up points. And I think that's something that is worth noting. And then a couple Europeans. You have the smaller left wing Ivar Stenberg from Sweden, who put up a lot of points last year in the U20 league in Sweden, and you have to take note when that happens. It's going to be interesting to see if he plays against men this year. He's good enough to play against men this year. He actually had a hat trick yesterday against Team USA in the World Junior kind of tune-up stuff. But he's 5'10", 179. And so it'll be interesting if he does play up in the Swedish Hockey League next year, kind of what he's able to do and how many minutes they give him, because he has the skill. It's just going to be a question about size playing against men. And then arguably the player I'm most excited about, also playing in Sweden, is Vigo Bjork, and I'm super excited. It might be Borscht, so I have to check on whether or not the K is making a K sound or a sh sound on this one. Again, small guy, but reset all the records for the U20 league in Sweden last year. 74 points in 42 games is an unheard of pace for somebody in the U20 league in Sweden. Like I said, blew the former records out of the water. I'm really excited about him, but 5'9", 171.
Dylan, you love a 5'9" Swedish winger who's projected the top 10 of the draft, puts up great scoring numbers, but size is the concern. That is just your type of guy, huh?
Victor Eklund, totally different. Victor Eklund, 2 inches taller than this kid and had a higher compete level. Okay, no, I heard this. Okay, we're doing this. Sorry, everybody. 48 minutes into this podcast, we got a ton of questions left. Okay, Victor Eklund's 1 inch shorter than Brady Martin. RJ, why was Brady Martin not questioned and Victor Eklund was? This is Corey Proman's thing, and I'm right there with him on this. Like
All right.
literally,
What about
it was 1 inch difference, and all of a sudden, just having that 6 in front of your height is all that different.
what
It
about
could.
Joachim Kamel?
Oh, I mean, I like him. He's smart. He's got a great shot. I think he has not translated to the AHL at all, which is not a surprise given he never probably would have given his thing. But and he's Finnish, so
Oh, that's true. Yeah, there you go.
doesn't count.
Yep. All right. All right.
No, and look, again, they have their limitations. Like the size is a huge limiting factor compared to the North American guys that have the bigger size. It's just that I do think, like, especially with Vigo, the skill just out, it's going to make up for it, right? Like this is you're talking about like an Alex DeBrincat kind of smaller statured winger who is going to definitively be a top line or at least a top six player versus other guys that are going to be more like borderline, where if they can't be in those top six and they can't hold down that spot and they can't drop 30 plus goals a year, they're not really NHLers. These two guys, Stenberg and York, they don't have that. Like they're going to be top six guys for sure. And so, again, there's always going to have limitations on them. Are they going to help you win a Stanley Cup come playoff time? On the power play, they will. But you better have size around them if you do. But those are the names to look out for on a team like the Kraken, where you just need somebody with some skill and realistically you need creativity and speed. I wouldn't hate them being added to the pool to play with like a Jake O'Brien who does have size down the middle in the future.
Okay, so I could see it be someone I'd maybe root against them taking if they're picking the top four. But if they're picking at 8 again, I could certainly be talked into that. Although might lean toward Ivar Stenberg just because of the great sponsorship opportunity with Ivar's.
Yeah, yeah,
I'd love
that
to
does
see that
exist there.
collab there. So there, you're back here in Seattle, Dylan.
Yeah, yeah, no. Um,
All right, next question from Chuck. You guys have watched hockey for at least the past 20 years. During that time, are the recent Florida Panthers the best team you've seen, or is there a team who you would put up against them you feel pretty sure could beat them? This is a great question,
mhm.
and oh boy, could we spend like half an hour at least on it on a regular podcast on
Mhm.
Patreon. Dylan, what teams come to mind, or is it just your cats for you
As
and no one can beat them?
I do see that you have added some teams here to the
Oh no,
to
I
the
put
thing
that in
that
the note. I said
yes.
I sent you.
So I
Whoops.
have seen I do have the teams that you put, and I will say we could start with the first one because it was the first team that came to my mind as well. So I'm not
Okay.
just cheating off your list, and that is the 2010 Blackhawks, because that team was as stacked as any Stanley Cup team could ever be, realistically. I'm right there with you. The 2010 Blackhawks, I do think, would give the Florida Panthers quite the run for their money. I think it would be a really interesting series because partly how that Blackhawks team won was not just because they had all the skill that they had, but they also had some pretty physical guys out there who were able to mix it up. And I do think it would be a pretty epic battle between like Barkov, Prime Barkov, and Tays going at it down the middle. I think that would be really interesting and kind of how the center depth might play out. I might give the edge to Florida, but in just about everything else, I think I'd probably give the edge to the Blackhawks, except for Bobrovsky. I think I'd take Bobrovsky over
Antiniemi.
Niemi. Yeah,
Yeah. So I mean that's the one area where I think they could beat. But Niemi was so good during that
it
playoff
was.
run in net. It was just one of those where the goalie just happens to step up a ton. But I mean, you look at that Blackhawks team and the depth too. I mean, of course you got
It was
Kane, Taves,
crazy.
Sharp, Post at the top. You've got Dustin Bufflin and like Andrew Ladd as depth guys. Like Andrew Ladd playing 1342 a night. Just coming to the league as 24-year-olds. Troy Brower was really good in his day. 23-year-old Christopher Stieg. I mean, this team really had to sell off a lot of their depth because they just couldn't afford to keep everybody. But this being the first year they broke through, I mean, they had everybody. This was before they had to kind of make any of their cuts.
Yeah, I mean, just like Florida, right? Like they had a ton of players who were able to produce points and goals throughout the playoff run. I mean, you had 8 guys give you 14 or more points, and a very different era of the NHL too. So like, it's a little hard to compare one for one on that production, but they were pretty elite out there. Jonathan Taves too. Like again, him versus Barkov would be crazy because Taves was putting up the numbers, an assist per game during 22 games of postseason play, 60% on the faceoff dot. Like he just did everything for them. out there. I think that that team, the Seabrook and Duncan Keith pairing, I think could go out there and really nullify a lot of what Florida wants to do. And so yeah, I think it would be a fantastic series to watch.
Yep. So the next team I had was the 2021 Lightning, because I really, it's a shame we never got to see the Prime Panthers and Prime Lightning really face off. I think they just kind of missed each other by like a year,
Yeah.
when each team was at their absolute best and their peak. But they just play so similarly too. I could really see it just being a 7-game series and a 1-0 game 7 where just whatever bounce goes in, goes in.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think that it would be really fun. I think that the goalie battle would be really interesting to watch between Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky. I think Vasilevsky probably takes that, especially that
I'd give the edge to
era
him. Yeah.
of Vasilevsky. He takes it. The blue line depth that Tampa had again, I think that that makes things a little interesting and probably puts them over the top. Just with what they had there. Again, what's so unique about Florida and them being able to go back to back to back the way they have is the fact that they just have not had to bleed any players, right? Like any team we talk about in this has always had to after they win the Stanley Cup really shave off a significant portion of their roster, guys that made significant contributions to them. And Florida just really hasn't had to do that at all. And so it kind of it makes it sound like, oh, we're coming up with these teams and we're saying they're as good. I do think on and 1 year stretches they were as good as Florida. It's just that Florida cracked the code as far as being able to keep the whole group together.
Yeah, agreed. And then, I mean, one team that, another team that hasn't been able to keep the group together, the 2022 Avalanche, where a lot of their depth got bled away. But that team, I maintain, if they played the Panthers in a 7-game series, it's going 5. It's going 4 or 5. I can't tell you which team wins. Either Colorado just cruises on their superior skill and Florida can't slow them down, or the Avs have to face adversity in a way they never did in their real life Stanley Cup run and they just crumble.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to see a series. I don't think that Avs team beats them.
I don't think so
I
either. I think
I'm with
Florida
you on the
has
other
much better
two.
odds there.
I don't
Yeah.
think the Avs are good enough.
Yeah.
I don't know that any other team is really good enough. I think just the Tampa and the Chicago team really are. When I was looking at it, I went
Yeah.
back to like through the salary cap era, and I just didn't see anybody else that I think could really do it.
Yeah. I mean, there's some I had maybe a question about, like the 2012 Kings. Like, could anyone have stopped what they had going on, going up 3-0 in every series as an 8 seed?
The only thing there is like if Jonathan Quick was just going to be unbeatable, then like yeah, I guess they're going to
And
beat
there's nothing you could
anybody.
do.
Yeah.
And they were physical. They could hang with the Panthers
Hmm.
physically. But
Yeah,
that's the only other
but
team I
they
could
did
think of.
not. They wouldn't have had the scoring depth. Like again, if
Oh,
Jonathan
definitely
Quick
not.
is not insanely automatic, like there's just no contest of depth there. Kind of like a similar thing with like I thought of like the 16 Penguins, just because like I do think like Sidney Crosby would find a way of absolutely, you know, dominating whenever he was out there. I think you have the depth of Malkin, and then that beautiful line with Phil Kessel, Carl Hagelin, and Connor Sheary. Or well, he was there for some of it, but it was really Hagelin and Kessel and the speed that they had. Um, I mean, you had Nick Bonino have 18 points in 24 games. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of a really weird Penguins team, and I decided that like it's definitely not a better team than Florida, but you do have the Sidney Crosby factor, and Crosby was
Yeah.
just unbelievably motivated, and I don't bet against a motivated Crosby.
Yeah, and hey, that is fair. But really fun question. I mean, we could even just go like year by year and look at whoever might contend or might not. So thank you for that question, Chuck. Next one, another really fun one, another thought experiment, another one we could take a long time with on our Patreon podcast. This one from Bryce. I'm the new commissioner and I've banned all coaches. Who wins the Stanley Cup? I love this question.
It's a fun question.
Did I
Uh,
include teams in my notes that I sent to you?
you did not. The first team that comes to
Okay,
my
good.
mind though is Dallas.
Okay. You like that the group of play I mean, I guess how do you approach this question? Like how do you think about it in looking at what team you think would do well?
Well, I
Is
mean,
just
I
a
look at
strong group of veteran players? Is it a team that's maybe being held back by coaching? Like what is it?
it's a combination of both, and I think it's also one where if guys are going to have to be in charge of, because really what's the most significant thing a coach does after they install a system at the beginning of the year, it's knowing when to make tweaks to those systems and when to have the guys play a little bit more opened up and go for it offensively, when you need to tighten ship, how to play that momentum game. And so I was just thinking of groups that I feel like have the potential to kind of self-police themselves and understand those momentum swings. And I think Dallas is that team. It's just that Pete DeBoer was really bad at sometimes in key situations playing that himself, and he would kind of overthink things. And so I think Dallas would be a team that would really like when they know they need to open it up, they understand where everybody's going to be out there on the ice. They have that chemistry with each other. They have the depth there. You've got a goaltender who I think would probably be better in a less structured system in Ottinger because he could just kind of really play to his size. And so Dallas was the first team that came to mind there. It felt like a cop out to say Florida because Florida's just going to keep doing what they've been doing. Whether Paul Maurice is
Yeah.
there or not, they're going to just keep trying it, and it's going to largely be successful.
Right. If I had had to put money on this, I'd probably Florida's got to be just the betting favorite there. Cause look, that group of veterans, like
It's just the best
they know what it
roster.
takes. They've done it. It's the best roster. It's going to continue. I mean, the other kind of cop out one, but I really do believe in this is Edmonton because already, like, it's just McDavid and Dreisaitl doing their thing, and they're going to continue to do their thing in the same way. Like, I think that team doesn't look all that different
No, it doesn't.
without a coach. And you got to imagine that most, if not all, other teams are just going to get worse
Hmm.
from that change. And so then Edmonton kind of rises to the top because they're just built different in that way. So those are my two like teams that I think probably most likely. I have another couple teams that I think would really improve. Maybe not wouldn't win the cup,
Oh,
but
okay.
actually like would do better in that scenario that are more interesting. I think LA.
Yeah.
I think of all the strong player groups, that one I maybe trust the most because they've got Kopitar and Doughty
Hmm.
leading that, and a lot of other vets there. Like I think, I don't think they were getting great coaching beforehand, so I
Yep.
think they could benefit from it. And then you know what, Buffalo,
Oh, yeah.
they've got the talent. Like if everybody loses coaching and structure, they don't have it. But if nobody
Yeah.
else has it,
Yeah.
like they're a playoff team. Buffalo's not going to win the cup, but they're a playoff team.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, really, you could almost say that any of the teams with bad coaches are going to get better, right? Anaheim gets better, like all the teams with the bad coaches definitely get better. But I do think Buffalo probably improves the most of that group.
As long as, I mean, I don't know, I haven't asked you, Bryce, as the commissioner, have you banned like anyone behind the bench, or if you just banned the coaches and like can Terry Pagula just like climb behind the
Oh
bench and
no!
try to coach the team? Because that's what would happen.
Thank God Lou's not around for the Islanders
Oh
anymore.
no. Yeah, exactly.
uh,
So I'm gonna go with just banning everyone behind the bench
yeah,
that's not a player.
yeah. There's two obvious teams to me that take massive steps back though, and that's
Yeah.
Washington and Vegas. Those teams
Oh, totally.
fall apart without coach holding it together.
For different reasons too.
Completely different reasons, yes. But
Yeah,
they
it would be
they are
fun
the
to
big
see.
losers in this universe.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's really good. Well, I appreciate that question, Bryce. Yeah, and I support your. I mean, I don't even know how the Kraken do. Not well.
Yeah, I don't think they do well. Um, all right, last group of questions. We're an hour in. Let's see if we can beat 90 minutes.
Yes. Okay. Let's do this. And we've got our last group of questions. These ones I saved to the end because they're just about us, and I figured you probably want to hear about Kraken and hockey stuff before just questions about us. But this one from General in the Reply Guy Army. Love that. What are your guys' top pet peeves when you hear national media and/or smaller content creators discuss the Kraken? I don't think we've really talked about this
I
before.
don't think we have either. I mean, it's basically all the same stuff that, just growing up as a West Coast hockey fan, we've had to deal with regardless of what team we've been following. And it just comes down to they're not watching the games because the games are starting at like 10:30 at night. There's other better teams to be watching if you are staying up, right? So you're not watching the Kraken all that much. And so you just kind of go based off of box scores and metrics and all of that. And so it kind of creates a scenario where you can draw maybe the wrong conclusion, and that's what really bothers me. Some of those, like last year specifically, was around the defense and just looking and saying like, well, this team needs a defenseman. It was like, no, they kind of have defensemen. The problem is they have no structure to it, right? Like these defensemen would all be playing better if they at all understood what they needed to be doing. It wasn't that they needed a defenseman, they just needed structure. And so there's stuff like that that gets me. The other one that gets me is when they talk about Matty Beniers, and they talk about Matty Beniers as though he is like this like elite young center, and it's like he is defensively, but I don't think like he belongs in some of the same conversations as other, second overall pick centers when it comes to being able to like lead the team and take them to the playoffs and all of that kind of stuff, because he just doesn't have that offensive side of his game. And they'll kind of talk about him like he's that guy, and then all of a sudden just be like, I don't know why he's not producing. And it's like, again, watch him play. Like, it's just he doesn't have that offensive component. That's why.
Yeah, and I kind of share that as far as like the national media stuff. Although I've come to understand it a little bit more, just given I mean that we do a league wide podcast and we don't have always have the time to watch
Yeah, you
games for
can't
every
watch
other team all the
everybody.
time. Like that's the thing, and I I talked with Leah Hextall about it, or I think earlier last season, and it was an interesting conversation too because she talked about how much she relies on local media and independent media
Hmm.
people like us, who are around the team day to day and see the intricacies of the storylines and everything because just given their travel schedule they really don't have the time to dig all that deep into things, and so I've become a little more understanding of it. And I think with also, I mean, we might get to this point when the Kraken are a better team, but I think like the most common complaint with fans in the national media is just that their team is disrespected or ignored. And frankly, like with the Kraken the last couple years, I don't really think they've earned that respect or attention.
Yeah,
So that doesn't bug me, but I'm sure it
might
will
be a
be the
good
case
thing
when the Kraken
actually.
are better. Yeah,
like
probably is.
like
Yeah.
they would be tearing them apart otherwise. But yeah,
Yeah.
well, that does lead to a pet peeve of mine that isn't necessarily on the national media, but it is on kind of the market, and that is that because the national media relies so much on the local coverage, there just isn't a ton of local coverage for the Kraken compared to other markets and East Coast markets, right? And there isn't in the traditional ways, right? You're coming in your national media, you're used to looking at the major newspapers, you're used to looking at the athletic affiliate, you're used to looking at that stuff. Seattle doesn't have a lot of that, right? We don't have a dedicated athletic affiliate really anymore, right? Like it wasn't able to be supported. The paper coverage is smaller than other places because you just have the Times, right? And a lot of times there, it's just going to be like one article about a game and then a couple others throughout the week. It's just not quite covered the same in the same breath as a lot of the other markets. And if you're incoming national media and you only have to pay attention to this team twice in 9 months, you're not going to sit there and sift through all of the independent coverage, which I think Seattle does do a great job of, is having a lot of
Yeah.
good independent coverage. Sound of Hockey, Charles over at Circling Seattle Sports, all of that good stuff. Davy Jones Locker, all those great outfits. You're not looking into them. You're not looking into us if you're national coverage because it's just a different pipeline. You don't have the time to sift through all that to see which ones are the bigger ones, which ones are going to be telling me the storylines I need to follow. And so I do think that that's another struggle that Seattle has, is because we just don't have a lot of those traditional media outlets. The storylines just aren't as easy to pick up when you're having that cross country flight coming into Seattle.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, as for other, local media and content creators, like I'm not going to name names, but certain things that I think should be obvious, like reporting things with certainty when they're not, misquoting us or our colleagues,
Hmm.
that's happened, and I'm talking more about, so on the social media side, particularly Instagram, there's a lot of that stuff out there.
Yeah.
So, that's the other thing that bugs me.
Yeah.
All right. So next question here from Shannon. We know that Monty is a nickname wizard. And he certainly is. If he were handing out names for the two of you, what might they be? And how do your past or present teammates refer to you on the ice?
Yeah, so I mean, you go for it. I mean, you're the one with past and present teammates really to
Yeah,
talk
that's
about
true.
this.
So I mean, I don't have a big history of like hockey nicknames for my teammates. It's always RJ. That's because it's
It's
so short.
basically a nickname already.
It basically is a nickname already. So that's kind of, what it is. I'm sure in the NHL, it just, because it'd be on the last, just like Esky or something, you know. I have had, I mean, my elementary school basketball nickname was Ruffles.
What?
Yeah. I thought you knew this.
No.
Yeah, there
You
was
just
a there
eat
was
too
a
many
kid.
chips?
No, there was a kid in elementary school who like gave nicknames to everybody while we were playing basketball. Like that was
Mhm.
like his thing. And he called me Ruffles and I asked why and he's like, "'Cause you have ridges." And I never asked a follow-up question to that.
Yeah, no,
I'm I mean, in college, like real Jesus was the thing briefly. in one of my classes, but no, I'd like to think Monty would be more creative, and it'd be based on something that I would do. Like I wouldn't have earned the nickname yet, but like something I don't know, I can be a pretty odd guy.
Yeah.
You could go to a team dinner eating my sweets with my savory or whatever, something like that. I think the nickname would be based on something I would do.
Yeah. I agree that it would be something based off of that and not just name based for you. I think it might have to be that way for me, like just because what do you do with Dylan? There's like the obvious stuff, right? Like, there's Dill, whatever. I do think like the best name based nickname for me would be like Dieter. Like that feels like a pretty hockey nickname just because I do have
Okay,
the DT initials. I think that
that's good.
that was kind of the best thing that we were able to workshop here as far as like a Montour sounding nickname for me.
That's a good one, yeah. I mean, and I was gonna say maybe something based on the hair or the flow, right?
Hmm.
But I mean, there's a lot of guys in hockey that have good hair too, so maybe it wouldn't
Yeah.
stand out as much.
Yeah.
All right, so another one from Shannon. If you could have anyone from the hockey world over for a meal, who would you choose? What would you serve them, and why? At our house, we love playing the game apples to apples after dinner or before dessert. Besides conversation, what post meal activity might you plan?
So it was. I don't know about the activity.
Who is it for you, and why is it Sidney
I
Crosby?
was gonna say, obviously, if it's players, I'm going Sidney Crosby, but I don't think I actually go Sidney Crosby. I probably go with one of the more plugged in GMs just to really ask questions about like how that goes down and what those behind the scenes things really are. Like if it's like off the record and they trust me and
Yeah,
whatever, you can have that conversation. That or I'm talking to the heads of PR for teams because that's how you get all
you
the
could get
juicy
good
fun
stories.
stuff. Like all the stories are coming from the heads of PR. So I did think about that afterwards because I was like, okay, oh, I'm gonna talk to Bill Zito and be like, oh, how'd you think of all this stuff, right? Like that's obviously everybody would want to do that, but it's not really a fun, exciting one. I want to go to like the Buffalo head of PR. Just vent, unload, let me hear it all.
That'd be so fun. I love that idea.
Like you got to go to a bad team full of drama and you got to talk to their PR or social media team. That's who you want.
All right. So, what are you serving them then?
Oh, I carbs. Like just
Those carbs. We're eating the Dylan diet.
yeah, yeah. I
You
mean,
know.
that's all I'm eating. I'm eating carbs. It's gonna be some sort of pasta dish. They want
And what
something to
post
go
meal
with it.
activity do you have?
But I don't know. See, that's the thing. I'm
It's got to
not.
be something that'll get him to spill the stories.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, is that the time for spilling stories, or is that the time to like have fun after you've unloaded all your workplace drama? You
Yeah,
know what I
actually,
mean?
yeah, that could be a good one. Yeah,
Classics Mario Party. Like, you can't go wrong with that.
yeah.
Any
Uh,
generation, really. So,
okay, that's a good choice. So I was thinking pretty similarly with the GM thing. I picked Doug Wilson because, of
oh,
course, growing up a Sharks fan, I what?
I was gonna say, oh, RJ's big table. It's Doug Wilson and Joe Thornton. Like,
Well, I mean, maybe Thornton for the player side, but no, Doug Wilson, I think, because look, I'd want to know the GM, like about how all that stuff works, but I would also really love to know because I think one of the fun things about talking with the GM, if it was really unfiltered or whatever, is all the moves that didn't come together
Mhm,
too, and all the things that were possible, and just it provides so much more context to my entire childhood growing up as a fan and following that team so closely. So that's just one for me where I feel like there's no other GM that could bring that.
mhm.
Um, whether it's for a player or whatever, I'd probably cook some pasta dish because I love pasta and I know hockey players
Yeah,
love pasta, or pasta. So I would just do that. For the post game activity or post meal activity, you can probably guess what it would be.
me. I mean, is it playing on
Yeah.
the sport court?
No, well, that would be fun. If it was a player, I would do that. But I play a board game.
Yeah,
I play the GM board game
the GM
that
board
we
game
have
against Doug Wilson.
with Doug Wilson.
He would probably hate it for all the reasons I hate it.
Probably, yes. Not very skill based. So that's what I would do. Yeah, if it was a player, I mean, I gotta go jumbo. And then on the media side, like maybe Jeff Merrick. I just think that'd be endlessly entertaining. I could just listen to
Yeah,
him talk forever. So but great question there, Shannon.
yeah, definitely.
All right. So next one from Legion of Jeremy. I'll just throw a random question in there. Each of you can go to any past sporting event. Which would it be and why?
This one was a lot of fun, and
It was a lot of fun to think of.
I
Yeah.
will say I've got like kind of four options here. Only one of them's related to hockey, and it would be to
Okay.
go back in time and see all the like kind of versions of like proto hockey that were played by like the indigenous groups in Canada and in Russia, because I think like I would just like to see what that looked like, you know, all those basic kind of stick and ball games played on ice thousands of years ago that ultimately led to hockey. That was really the only hockey thing I could think of that I was like, you know what, that's what I want to see.
Okay.
Because for me, a lot of this is like anything that has video footage. I've kind of seen it, right? Like if this is if I've got like this magical ability to travel through time and be anywhere I want to go to something where I have no like video or photo record of it.
Yeah. I mean, how about the 100-point game? We still don't have video of that, right? Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point
Yeah,
game.
there's that. I
I
don't
think there are
care.
better options. But no, I thought in a similar way though, because like I would want to go back realistically as far as I could in time to just get the full experience. I mean, I'd love to see if it counted, gladiatorial games at the
Yep,
Colosseum
I
in
had that
ancient
too.
Rome. Like
Yeah.
that's probably number one on my list. Like I love history, so I would want to use that to go back and see. I mean, also possibly a baseball game like in the 1900s, 1910s. I
Mhm.
know we might have some like rudimentary video or photos for that, but just to kind of
Wow.
get the feel of everything around me.
RJ not knowing about dead ball era. You're in for
I
some
don't.
brutal
I'm not
action,
there
man.
for the game.
No, I know. No, I did the same thing, right? I had Gladiators, I had Mesoamerican ball game, right? Like I
There
like
you
all
go.
these like ancient sports that we hear about, but like I want to see what the environments around that actually were. As for like more recent stuff, just to like not be like only old school, at the risk of sounding like the parents in Get Out, Jesse Owens kicking Nazi butt at the 36 Olympics. Like how do you not want
Good
to
one.
see that? That's pretty
Yeah.
good. And then I think also for me, just pure emotion. And this is all an emotion based one. It's not so much for the game itself. Would be the Lou Gehrig speech, the luckiest man in the world speech, and just because it's one of those speeches where every time I hear it, I get goosebumps, and just to like feel the emotion of the crowd there, where he's played his last game 2 days ago. Everybody, it's come out the rumor that he's dealing with ALS, and he's had to retire, and he comes out and he gives that speech, and I think that for emotional sports moments, that one is right there up at the top. And so to be able to be there and feel that emotion in person, I think would be really cool.
Yeah, that's a fantastic pick. And I guess I have gone into it kind of also assuming that you don't going into it, you don't know already what's going to happen. That you can kind of treat it like a, spectator at that time or something. But I mean, I guess the one that I've picked I want to do a more recent one too, and one that's kind of more personal to me. And it's the 2017 Rose Bowl,
Hmm.
the one that I could have been at theoretically. But yeah, I was on vacation with my family, and so unfortunately had to miss that game. Vacation was definitely worth it. Like it was the right place to be and the better place to be. But if I could have been in two places at once, I would have loved to be at the 2017 Rose Bowl, USC with the dramatic 52-49 win over Penn State after trailing by quite a bit, two fourth quarter touchdowns and a field goal to win the game. Just incredible game. And I actually didn't know what that was my senior year of college too. And I didn't know what happened in that game for I think 4 or 5 full days afterward because we were out somewhere I didn't want it spoiled. I couldn't
Yeah.
watch it live because we were out somewhere with like no internet. And I remember watching that game with my dad in the Houston airport, just watching it unfold and just like freaking out at how crazy that game was. And it was a cool moment in itself too, just watching that with my dad. But
Yeah.
to have been there in person would have been just incredible.
Yeah. One of the only highlights of SC football since you've been to SC.
Hey, that season was magical. That season was amazing. That one year
Yep.
kept Clay Helton this job for way too long.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say doomed the school for a long time.
was it worth? No, it wasn't worth.
It was
All
not
right.
worth it.
All right. Next question
Yep.
from Sarah. Did you and Dylan always want to work in hockey media? And if not, what changed?
I mean, we always wanted to work in hockey.
Yeah.
In high school, I had yelling at the ref, so I was kind of doing the media thing. I was also really just interested in the history of it, though, so it was also just an outlet to write articles about historical figures within the sport and things like that. So like there was that element of working in hockey media for me beforehand, but really I think for both of us, like we just always wanted to be involved in the sport. Obviously, something more so on the team side of things is probably always the idea. Obviously, I scouted and stuff for a while, but this this just kind of came together because the Kraken were starting, and it was a good way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of came together almost by accident. Like, if not for COVID, this wouldn't have
Yeah.
happened, I don't think. But yeah, I always wanted to work in hockey on the team side. My dream as a kid, of course, was not to be a player, it was to be a GM. And I was trying to kind of pursue that general route. Like before COVID happened, I was on my way, probably about to go to law school, to do the sports law thing and maybe get involved on like the salary side of things with the team. But life throws different things at you, and we ended up starting ECH, and I'm glad that we did. But I mean, it also kind of goes back to, and I think I've mentioned this on various podcasts before, but like in middle school, right? We'd always go over to each other's houses and we would
Hmm.
just talk about hockey and talk about sports, and it'd be a lot like this. And I remember your mom always just saying, "You guys got to just like bottle this, find a way,
Yes.
just record it,
Just
just
record
set
it.
up a microphone, leave it there, and just put it out to people." And people would like the chemistry and all that stuff because this is great. And it took us a while to kind of get that down once we started recording. If
Hmm.
you go look at any of these earlier deep dives, uh, it was kind of rough, and it was not like we were talking together on the couch, but I think we eventually kind of found a way to do it.
Yeah.
So that's always fun.
Yep.
But
Definitely.
yeah, so that's kind of just what changed for us. But we've always wanted to work in hockey because we love the sport. Next question from Gary. You always do an amazing job during the deep dive segment. During the regular season, you do a great job of highlighting the current conditions of the team. But how do you decide the topic when there isn't much going on, or when the same subject you discussed in the last few episodes is still a relevant opportunity? Now, this can provide some challenges sometimes. I mean, certainly next month in August is where it always gets difficult and where we kind of came up with the way too early idea. But
Hmm.
yeah, how do we approach it, Dylan?
I mean, we do this, right? Like we ask for a mailbag. We ask, we get everybody else involved. I mean, when in doubt, that's always been our thing. Has been to look to the community and engage the community on what it is you guys want to hear about during those times, right? When it is not obvious, when there is not news actively happening for the Kraken, what is it that the community wants to hear about? And we don't always have to ask directly. It can just be like kind of apparent just from monitoring social media, looking at the Discord, seeing things around. But that's basically kind of how we've always done it. Is just that's where it's kind of up to the fans to more or less drive the conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing. And even before we had that to the size that we have it, I mean, we did get a lot of practice trying to think creatively of topics
Yeah.
because we started so much before the team actually existed and
Yeah.
had a roster and all that stuff. You had to get a little creative as far as things you wanted to talk about. So I think that got us in the right mindset from a very early stage.
Yeah, definitely. And there's always time to dive into. I mean, we haven't had to do it these last couple off seasons because they've had coaching changes, but there's always opportunities to go through and really dive into players and how they performed last year and what they could tweak or whatever for next year. The coaching system, all of that kind of stuff. It's just happened where we've had larger scale changes these last couple off seasons, so it hasn't made a lot of sense to do that when everything's just going to change.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many things over the course of a season that you're like, well, I'd love to spend the time to kind of dig deeper into this, but there's a game tomorrow and there's
Hmm.
another game 2 days after that, and you don't have the time to do it. So if you can kind of bookmark those things, and whichever ones are still relevant in the off season, you can kind of go into, which is
Yeah.
cool.
Now, this last question here, RJ, it feels. There's been a couple of these questions that feel like plants. This one
I
feels
did
like the
not plant
biggest
this, I
RJ plant of
swear.
all time.
I know, right? It it totally does. I swear I did not plant this question. This is actually from Luke, who is another person and not me. So thank you, Luke, for this question because I love having the opportunity to answer it. Have either of you watched an AFL game, Aussie Rules Football? If so, which teams did you see and what did you think of the sport? Cheers. So I have. I have actually attended an Aussie Rules football game, and I love Aussie Rules football. Like, it's just so fun to watch. I mean, like with the ball up in the air, the like, lifting each other up, and like, it's awesome. I would follow it much closer if it was easier to watch and the time schedules and everything worked out and I had more time. But I love Aussie rules football. So I have gone to one game. It was the Sydney Swans versus the, I believe, Greater Western Sydney Giants, GWS Giants. It was July 14th, 2013, and the Swans won by a pretty big margin, 171 to 42. So it was not a close
Real
game. I
competitive
remember
there.
I remember hearing at the time how the Giants were a newer team at that time, and so I mean, fairly recent expansion team, right?
Yeah.
Not like unlike the Kraken, in their first couple of years. So yeah, they Swans won by quite a bit. It was a home game for the Swans, and I had a fantastic time. We were right behind the goalpost on one of the sides, and just got a really up close view of everything. And I love the sport.
Yeah, and I remember you coming back from that trip and showing me, and we were watching clips on YouTube and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. It definitely looked like a good time. I do like kind of the rule set that they have for it and everything. Like it looks like a great game for sure. But yeah,
Yeah. So
this
thank.
what are the
I
odds
swear
somebody
I didn't
asks
plant the
about Aussie rules football, right? Like you're just like,
I,
well, actually, I have.
I know. I was so excited to see that question included because yes, I actually have been to a game, and I do enjoy the sport as well. So thank you for that question, Luke. Definitely not me,
Yeah.
but thank you, Luke. And I think that's a good one to kind of wrap up this mailbag. Thank you, everybody who submitted questions, and enough that we could do this into a two-part
Mhm.
mailbag section so we could have a mailbag for our 200th episode. And thank you, everyone who's been listening, whether this is the first time you're tuning into a deep dive podcast or whether you've been with us since episode number one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been such a ride to be on with everybody and to see how this has grown. The community has grown, all of the stuff around the Kraken, right? And how it's all grown. It's really crazy to think about. And it's crazy to think about not just like how much bigger it all is and everything, but the fact that it was all only like 4 years ago.
I know that is
That's
a
the
lot of
really weird
episodes
part.
crammed into 4 years ago. I'm trying to go back and see what the date was on episode one, and I have to scroll and scroll and
It
scroll.
was what we started in March of 21, I think.
Yeah, it
It
was.
would have been at the
Yeah, that's
beginning
what.
of March, or was it the beginning of April? It was one of those two in 21.
Where's where I see episode two. Where's episode one?
I,
All right. Well, episode
we'll
two,
figure
yeah,
that
it
out.
was. We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to see what things we were talking about.
I mean, it was not Kraken based because we would throw on like the debate stuff at the end, like greatest American born player and things like that. I
Yeah,
remember.
that's true. Yeah.
So, but yeah, just how everything has come around the Kraken, the community that exists, how the Kraken Hockey League has grown, how you know what I mean, like KCI has been built out, all of that stuff, and the fact that it's all only been 4 years. When you're doing something like this every day, especially covering a sports team that plays as many games as the Kraken, I can only imagine for baseball fans and people who cover baseball how insane this must be. But when you're kind of really doing something that happens as much as a hockey season happens 82 times, it's so much that's happening day after day after day, and so you feel like 10 years worth of things have happened in 5 years because I can just think of so many different occurrences of meeting people, talking with people, spending time with friends up on the press bridge, right? Watching the games and the successes and the other times with the Kraken. But just the fact that like yeah, when you think about it, and it's been like yeah 4.5 years since we started all this, it's really it feels like a lot more has happened than what should fit in that time frame.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's a great way to do. I don't know. It's a great way to live, right?
Yeah,
Just feels like stuff's always going on. And so, thank you, everyone. For 200 episodes and hopefully 200 more. In gosh, it's like 4 years time. I guess what weekly podcast, 52, roughly 50 episodes a year, right?
yeah.
That kind of just times out.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. And, of course, not just many more podcasts with all of you in the community, but many more podcasts with our wonderful sponsor, the law offices of Rico Tessendor. And while we hope none of you ever need his services, the odds say that at some point someone out there will be involved in an accident, whether on the road, at work, or anywhere in between. And when you are, we hope you call Rico at 425-778-9800 or visit his website, ricotessendor.com, to schedule a free consultation. He's won millions of dollars for his clients and helped thousands of people in the greater Seattle area. And as a fellow member of the ECH community, we know he'll help you too. Thanks everybody for making it to 200 wonderful episodes. 100s, yes. That's how many episodes. Thanks so much, and we will see you all next time.
Hey everyone, before we go, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, especially our Terror of the Deep patrons.
Thank you so much for making all this possible. We really appreciate your support.